welcome back to another Toothpickings webcast. I just broke my damn chair. And if that's not a metaphor for something, then you should read my shirt, because that'll fill you in. I want to talk to you about geography today. Geography, the easiest subject that you failed in school. Specifically, a piece of geography that's missing. Castle Dracula is missing. Now, I know, because I'm sure you've already started to Google this, if you go and you search for Castle Dracula, you will find no end of places telling you that they are most assuredly Castle Dracula and that for a fee you can come and visit them or maybe even stay there. Well, some of those places may have been built by Vlad the Impaler, or maybe he stayed there for a short time, but none of them are the place that the fictional Count Dracula, the person in Bram Stoker's novel, was supposed to have lived, and none of them are the places where his castle was supposed to be located. That's the important distinction here. Where was the Dracula of Bram Stoker's novel residing? Not to be confused with Vlad the Impaler, because Vlad the Impaler, of course, did not live in Transylvania. Vlad the Impaler could not get a dinner reservation in Transylvania. Vlad the Impaler was from Wallachia. Dracula of the book was from Transylvania. So, where was he living? Now, if you read through the book very carefully, you'll see that there are passages that say Jonathan Harker traveled X number of miles, and then he waited an hour here, and then he went through the Borgo Pass, and then he stayed at this hotel, and you can, drive yourself crazy trying to do all the math, but maybe it adds up to nothing, because Bram Stoker never visited Transylvania. He did his research reading a little bit here and there. We know he relied on Emily Gerard's book, The Land Beyond the Forest, which, this was kind of fun. The Land Beyond the Forest translates to Transylvania. I don't know. When I was growing up, I did not realize that Transylvania translated to that. But now that I do, I'm like, oh, wow, that's not at all interesting. Here's a chair leg that I broke off. Listen, Bram Stoker didn't have Google Street View, and his readers didn't either. And he had no reason to think that anyone reading his book was going to follow up and say, hey, wait a minute, Bram, where did you mean to place this? No one cared. They wanted a good gothic horror novel. And that's exactly what it delivered. And so the deal he made with the audience was, you don't look too close at my numbers. We won't sweat the little details. And for 100 years, everyone kept the deal. And then one day, about 10 years before I'm recording this, a photographer named Hans Cornel de Roos was researching a book he was working on that had to do with vampires and Dracula, and he got a little too close to the truth. He found the location where Bram Stoker meant for Dracula to reside. And guess what he found there? Not a castle, nope. He found a mountain. I'm not going to be able to pronounce this mountain. No, what's there is Mount Isvorel, Kalamanulia. And I'm not going to apologize for that because there's nobody living there. Nobody's going to be offended because you have to go hours before you find a living resident anywhere. And that's by car today. So if you can imagine traveling by carriage in the 1800s, how far Dracula would have had to gone just to get a fresh neck to bite. He is secluded. This guy is off the grid. So why doesn't Bram Stoker use a real castle? I mean, Romania is chock full of those things. He could have grabbed one from anywhere and used it, but for some reason he didn't. Now, I don't know. The guy's grabbing surnames from Holland, and he's grabbing surnames from Hungary, and he's grabbing locations from Wallachia and inspirations from Texas. Maybe he just wanted to tell a good story and not sweat all the little details. But there's one thing that's really cool about this. You see, in 1980, a pre-publication typescript surfaced. It was never put into the final draft of Dracula, but it was what Bram Stoker was toying with the whole time. And in that version, Castle Dracula, at the very end, is swallowed into a volcano. Now, would you believe that Mount Isvorel is a dormant motherfucking volcano. Dormant motherfucking volcano. Bram Stoker looked around Romania and Transylvania. He found a dormant volcano and said, that's where I'm going to put the goddamn castle. I think he knew what he was doing. Now, if any of this seems like a stretch, there's still a smoking gun, because Hans Cornel de Roos later on went back checking his own work, and he found coordinates in Bram Stoker's notes, latitude and longitude, and guess what? This shit lines up. This is a amazing sleuth story, and guess what? You're going to be able to hear even more about it, because the next guest on the Toothpickings webcast is going to be Hans Cornel de Roos. I can't wait to talk to the guy. He is, I call him the Sherlock of Dracula, because, boy, the guy has uncovered a lot. This what I just talked about, finding the location of Castle Dracula, that's a teaser. That is just an appetizer to the mysteries that Hans has unlocked. Among others, the possible identity of Van Helsing in real life, who inspired Van Helsing. The possible real identity of Dracula, who is not Vlad the Impaler. Rest on that one for a while. And possibly the crowning jewel in his career is translation of the Icelandic version of Dracula that is so bananas different from the Dracula that you and I know. And I'd venture to say in some places, maybe even better. Listen, it's not a steak. You're not going to be able to kill me with it. But it's crazy. And there's a lot there. There's a lot to work with. This isn't just some one-off who gives a damn mystery. There's a lot to talk about here. And it has to do with authorship and inspiration and how much Bram Stoker knew what was going on, or whether this was all part of his master plan. There's a lot to unpack. So join me on the next Toothpickings webcast. Hans Cornel de Roos is going to be my guest. It's going to be awesome. Yes, I do have an Icelandic phrase on my shirt, but it does not apply to you or me. It only applies to the people who are not taking safety precautions when it comes to the pandemic we currently find ourselves in. So I know you're going to look up the translation, but they are not, because until next time, stay safe.